18 years in the NFL, 6 playoff appearances with Seattle. My friend, it's great to see you. You know, I was saying...
Where's that come from?
What's that?
I heard some claps in the background. Who was that?
We have a
Appreciate
studio
that.
audience
Thank
behind
you.
the wall.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So I said, a year ago, Sam Darnold is a backup starting in a meaningless game. He was considered a bust. To walk into Detroit last night and be great, I thought was as a big ask. It felt like a playoff game. And I said last week, it's the biggest game in Detroit in 50 years. Do you think differently about Darnold after that performance?
No, listen, like the future is a whole lot of right nows, and that was a right now moment. Like, he had never been in that situation before. He'll learn from it. I thought it was just an awesome game plan by Aaron Glenn. Like, I thought they came out, and was it man or was it zone? It was both. Was it a blitz we can pick up? Yes, but now we're one-on-one in an area of strength against an area of weakness. I thought the crowd noise was a real factor. Yes. I mean, the people in Detroit should feel like they had a hand in that victory. They had a hand in that defensive success because they did. I'm not worried. I don't think I'm worried about Sam Darnold. I'm sure a lot of people are going to jump off the bandwagon. He's a really good football player, but here's what they'll do. And I think Kevin O'Connell did a good job last night, even at the podium right after the game. He kind of gave his messaging. Like, hey, I was with a team. I believe it was the Rams. We lost the last game of the season, and we made it to the Super Bowl. Like, we can do that, but what do we got to do? We got to watch his tape, learn from it, flush it, and move on. We got another one this week. And that's what they'll do. But I do think the key there is learning from it. And I just think they were surprised, and they didn't match the intensity of the moment.
Yes.
And Detroit brought it. It was like years and years of frustration came out in one game. And think about what was at stake. That first round bye for a team that's as banged up as Detroit is,
huge,
with home field advantage the way they have it, that's a hungry fan base, and a lot of players on that team that have been there for, almost a decade, like some of those guys, it meant more. Like sometimes you say it in the locker room, like it means more to us. I think it really did mean more to Detroit last night, and it showed.
Yeah. I want to say this about, I said this to start the show. I said, in some ways, the NFL is the anti-NBA. You have to be selfless, and you always play hurt. By week 4, quarterbacks, kickers are dinged. And sometimes me, as an outsider, can roll my eyes at some of the messaging. It's a little cheesy. But there's a brotherhood and a masculinity in the NFL, and when you're going downhill, I think Dan Campbell is the perfect coach for the city. They're the Cubs in shoulder pads. Like, they're just – he has been able – this team on Monday against the Niners could have just mailed it in. Let's get healthy. He's like, no.
Yeah.
No, we're Detroit.
Yeah.
This is every game matters. I think he is literally the perfect coach.
Yeah. Well, and I think their style of play, their identity, their head coach's personality, who he is at the podium, resonates with the city, resonates with Detroit. We're a tough city. We're a blue-collar city. We're not like everybody else. Like, we're built, I don't want to say Ford tough, but like it's kind of like that mindset.
Yeah.
And I think that it matters. Now, listen, Dan Campbell's not just some tough guy, though. Like, he's a guy that he played for. I think he coached with Parcells. He coached for Sean Payton for a long time.
Parcells and Payton love him.
And so, like, he's not just some, like, meathead. He's a guy that's, like, weathered the storms. He's pretty smart. He's been around. He's been around Hall of Fame type coaching. He was the interim head coach at the Miami Dolphins. Do I think he would have been the perfect head coach for the Miami Dolphins? No. Do I think he's the perfect head coach for the Detroit Lions? Yes. And I think that's what, like, honestly, just like the synergy of your cast-off quarterback, just like that toughness, that grittiness, that resilience, it all fits together with what they got. Now, listen, the danger for him, though, he's got to learn how to be tough and physical and all that and still survive these long seasons now. Like, you don't want to be limping into the Super Bowl.
Right.
You got to, I don't know if you call it load management, but you got to practice smart, and you have to coach smart from, I don't know, like an injury standpoint.
Sure.
And that remains to be seen if they can do that. But there's a lot of good things to say about Detroit. I mean, a lot of good things.
Yeah. So the Bo Nix story, it's interesting. He fell to 6. Now, it was a very good quarterback draft class. And by the way, Lamar fell to the end of the first round. It's hard. You don't know. But
it's never in order. Like, never. The order that is in your mock draft is never how it turns out.
But it was almost as if he was considered in the draft. Well, let's get to Caleb and Jaden. He's the second level. And I'm like, I saw him play live twice. I saw 61 college starts. I probably saw 35 to 40 of them. This dude's athletic. He is I was sat on a sideline of an Oregon game watching him. He is direct and he's like a coach. Are you surprised by how effective he was?
Yeah, listen, you say second level, you should have seen the combine. Like the dude Bo Nix got no attention at the combine, like very little. Everyone was talking about all these other guys. They were talking about guys that weren't even working out that day. And so for Bo Nix to go do his private with Sean Payton, for him to say, bam, that's my guy. Like, that's our guy. I don't think people jumped on board and said, oh, he's going to be successful. And I know for sure they didn't feel like in year one. What he has done this year, what Bo Nix has done, what Sean Payton has done, I think he's absolutely a candidate for Coach of the Year. The playoff drought that they had, the season that they had last year.
The dead cap money.
Dead cap. Vance Joseph's done a great job. But no, when you watch Bo Nix play, he does not look like a rookie quarterback. I do believe that, like, in this era of young quarterbacks, and this is somewhere where I think I had to grow and learn a little bit, these guys are so much more prepared coming into the NFL. Like, they get the extra year, they get the COVID year, the way kids are trained now. Like, I just even remember being at the financial literacy stuff at the combine.
Right.
And like, oh, guys, hiring an agent, paying your taxes, all this stuff. Half the room was like, yeah, we've been getting paid for a couple of years now. We're good. We're just all about the football. Right. So I think these quarterbacks are coming into it. And then you talk about a guy like Bo Nix that has all these starts under his belt in huge games in the SEC, out at Oregon.
Yeah.
It's very different than, say, like an Anthony Richardson situation, a guy that hadn't played a ton of football. He's got a bunch of starts under his belt. I think it matters. And having a Hall of Fame coach in Sean Payton, I mean, they're doing great.
So I got a lot of things I want to ask you about. We're going to get to the coaching thing in a second because I want your thoughts on Pete Carroll potentially in Chicago. I don't think it's ridiculous, and I forget ageist. I just think Pete's really good. But
well, you can't be ageist since you're 61 today. Happy birthday, by the way.
I am 61 today. Whatever. I looked at Aaron Rodgers. And listen.
Wait, were we talking Pete Carroll or were we talking Aaron Rodgers?
I want to go to Aaron and back to Pete.
You're back to ageist. Got it.
Yeah. So it's not a great quarterback draft class. Cousins looked a little washed. Vikings probably retain Darnold. It is easy to just punt on Aaron. But I look at him in the last 8 weeks, and 7 of them I was like, that's pretty good. I don't think the Jets should cut him. I actually think he has a semi-vibrant market.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he can still play. You saw that. And I talked about earlier in the year, the Jets looked like a team that were having no fun. I would say the total opposite, the end here. Like yesterday, they looked like they were having so much fun. It was anything but a chore. There was like a bunch of grown men playing to, almost like paying to play with like, in like one of those Legends things. You know what I mean? Like, it looked like a great way to go out if he goes out. But no, I would just say that if Aaron Rodgers wants to keep playing, he can. The thing, though, I don't think it can be like Aaron's street ball. I don't think he has the mobility for that. I just don't think that's winning football. I don't think that's what people are going to pay for. What they would pay for is an amazing conductor, a point guard, not the guy that's going to be Michael Jordan. They're looking for more of a distributor. They're looking for more of a someone to steady the ship. Maybe to just sort of be humble and be like a little bit more of a system quarterback. But can he throw? Yeah, he can throw. Has the game slowed down for him? Yes. Is he as mobile and durable as he once was? Like, no. And I think that's going to be the decision that he has to make. But seeing the joy, it was certainly there yesterday. I mean, that part for me, I think, was fun to watch.
So I have said, so let's now go into some of the coaching stuff. So we've got a bunch of coaching openings. We've got the Saints, the Patriots, the Jags, the Jets, the Bears, and there may be another one. We'll wait on the Raiders. So I said I didn't think Rex Ryan to the Jets was nuts, and I don't think Pete Carroll to Chicago is crazy. For a lot of reasons, I do not think you can give this to a snazzy coordinator who's never been a coach. This is a city, football to politics, everything's political. Everything in Chicago. And they don't have the strongest ownership as a city. And nobody's got, like, the super wealthy owners. I think Pete Carroll works in Chicago. You know Pete. Does he fit?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I thought you were going to say Brian Flores because that feels like it fits also. That's one that people are talking about. The synergy from GM to head coach to quarterback is very important in Chicago. That's something they have not gotten right since who knows when. I would say this. Pete Carroll, like the more dysfunction you have in an organization, the more you need a culture builder, an identity maker, an absolute rock star at the podium, like a rock star, not someone who's learning on the fly. And like you mentioned, those two organizations, the Jets and the Bears, I think they need a culture builder. I think they need a rock star at the podium. To me, Pete Carroll, just knowing Pete, he is in love with USC. So if there's any new head coach coming into Chicago that wants to see Caleb Williams succeed, it's Pete Carroll. But the revolving door in Chicago where the GM, the head coach, and the quarterback, they didn't sort of come in together, that's been one of the problems. Because if you get a new head coach in there who, Caleb's not my guy, I'm not married to him, my contract's not tied to his contract, like I can move on if I want to blame somebody. That could easily happen to the young quarterback. So I think you need someone that can handle the young quarterback who's got a tremendous amount of potential. And I think Pete Carroll would be the perfect guy. Culture setter, will bring a bunch of people with him who have been there and done it. And a lot of times, you know, who you are as a head coach is who's willing to come with you. And I think Pete Carroll, you know, has the credentials to bring a lot of people with him.
So, you know, I was saying this is the first time I remember best quarterback won every division. And I think Jared Goff is playing the best quarterback in a division where Darnold and Love and Caleb are super talented. But virtually every division, best quarterback won. And that's why I don't like the season extending to 18 games, because the more games you have, if I have a better quarterback and I get 60 more snaps in 2 more games than 5 years ago, I'm going to win the division. I like the NFL when you can be a defensive team, that we would go into the playoffs and think, yeah, all right, the Steelers have a chance to win the Super Bowl. But we don't think that, because in the AFC, Russell Wilson's fine, but not special. When I look at all this, the dark horse team to me that nobody is saying can win a Super Bowl is the Chargers. So Harbaugh is arguably as good a coach as the sport has outside of Andy Reid. Herbert now is as efficient as Aaron Rodgers and Brady in their prime. They don't have a star receiver. It's January football. The Tyreek Hills disappear very quickly. Number 1 defense, rush end, Harbaugh, Herbert, best offensive tackle combination. I look at the Chargers, and I'm like, if you told me the boxes that fit playoffs, you're smirking at me.
I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting Chargers, but maybe that's exactly what your point is. You know, like this is what I'd say.
There's going to be a curveball in the
My
playoffs.
favorite week. Maybe you could say championship weekend, you know, AFC, NFC championship. But my favorite weekend is wild card weekend. Those were like, if you look throughout the history of the best playoff games that have ever been played, I feel like it's always wild card weekend. And so, like, you know, they call it wild card because like it's anybody's weekend and it's different and everybody's 0-0, and the boost that you can get from having sort of like a disappointing season. And now all of a sudden, like, no, we're 0-0 and the Chiefs are 0-0 and like everybody's 0-0. And besides the bye, it's an equal playing field. So anything can happen. Like, that's the beauty of it. You just got to get hot at the right time. That's why, listen, every single team that I was ever on, the head coach in the very first meeting of the year said the same thing. Didn't matter the team, offensive coach, defensive coach. What do they all say? Win our division. That's goal number 1, because if we win the division, we are in the playoffs. And if we're in the tournament, anything can happen. And that's just like the mindset that goes into it. So like you're saying the Chargers, yeah, why not? They have a short week at Houston. Here we go. You know, now we're into round 2. Like, it doesn't take that much to get there. Like, that's what the exciting thing is. And all your peers are watching. Everybody in the league is watching. There's no other games. It's just your game. Yeah, the Chargers, they would not have been my dark horse.
Okay, so let's go back to it. I want you to give me a paragraph on each game. So let's start.
Okay.
Chargers at the Texans.
I feel bad the Texans are always in that, like, not primetime game, you know, that Saturday, 3:30. Like, yeah. I think that's, like, how I felt when we were in Seattle. Kind of joke, you're in the witness protection program out there. And, like, they never give you the primetime game because you're not, like, one of those original 6 in hockey kind of deal. No, listen, they're not a team, like, ascending. I think the Chargers defense is way better than people realize. They're a team to reckon with, probably in the second round of the playoffs. I don't know if the Texans can protect C.J. Stroud the way they need to.
To me, that's the takeaway. Steelers at the Ravens.
I think the Ravens are my dark horse team. Like Lamar Jackson's playing as good as anybody. I think that people have sort of written them off because they didn't have the most amazing regular season. But you want to talk about a team that can win it all, and they have all the pieces. Like, to me, I think the Ravens would be that team. The Steelers, I said earlier, I think they should have been playing both quarterbacks. I think Russell Wilson is obviously great at a lot of things, but he's not as mobile. I think Justin Fields he's a difficult quarterback to game plan for. Mike Tomlin, I just felt Arthur Smith, I felt like two quarterbacks playing would make them a more difficult team on offense. They didn't do that. I think the Ravens are the team.
Denver at Buffalo.
Listen, playing in Buffalo, there's a couple things. Like, I've done it a bunch of times. The weather's a thing. The crowd's a thing. The weather's a thing. I've seen a lot of warm weather teams go up there and kind of get like spooked before the game even starts because like the cold. Denver's not dealing with that. And like you listen to Sean Payton talk, and he's in the locker room right after the game, and he's like, "Listen up, guys. You are young. You're one of the youngest teams in the league. You are young and you are hungry, and that is a dangerous thing in the playoffs. Young and hungry." And he is selling them. He's a great example of a Hall of Fame type coach who's saying, "Hey, we're 0-0. It does not matter. We can go in there, get this win." And I believe, listen, that I don't know how I would pick that game. And I love Buffalo. Love them. Wow. Whoever wins that game could definitely represent the AFC.
Wow. How about that? Packers at Philly. Philly's kind of been downshifted. Some of obviously the concussion to Jalen Hurts. What say you?
I like Philly. I've liked them all year.
You have.
I thought Green Bay did a horrible end of the game situation yesterday, kind of gave that game away. But despite that, I think that Philly is a great team. Even with their backup quarterback, yeah. I think they look good. I mean, this is a team, they draft well, and whoever they draft at the quarterback position or whoever that plays quarterback for them, that coaching staff for years and years now, they seem to just play okay. You know, like they got a 6th-round quarterback out there. He looks good to me. So listen, obviously Jalen Hurts is one of the game's best quarterbacks, but I don't think this is a team that lives and dies by that. I think they're better than people give them credit for.
Commanders at the Bucks.
Listen,
this is a hard one.
Listen, I love watching Baker Mayfield play. Like, I love it. And I love what they did with Mike Evans yesterday. Like, Baker is doing awesome. Love him. But this is wild card weekend. If you were going to force me to pick sort of like an underdog on the seeding chart, I told you, I believe if Washington can clean up just like the sloppy,
too many defensive penalties.
They have something really special at the quarterback position in Washington. But again, Baker Mayfield, he's playing tough, gritty, definitely gritty. That'll be fun. That'll be a fun game to watch. If I had to pick an upset, Washington might be one to pick, though.
Finally, J-Mac and I disagree. Vikings at the Rams. I don't love the Rams' secondary matchup against the Vikings receivers. And I also think everybody's selling their Viking stock. And to your point, that was almost a non-winnable game last night. Vikings-Rams.
Tough game. Like, this is not, like, that's why last night's game was so big. One team gets the bye. Like, Detroit gets to go heal up. Some of their players their wives are, like, due this week. They're having babies. Like, they needed this bye week, literally, okay? And instead, the Vikings have to go play Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, Puka, Cooper Kupp. Like, that's not a tough one.
That defense
is good.
The Rams are arguably the healthiest team in the league now.
Which is crazy. But don't you think it's a good lesson as people are trying to figure out what to do with their head coach and next year? This year, people were trying to sell off the L.A. Rams. They were trying to trade Cooper Kupp. They were literally trying to happen. And then they played a nationally televised game, and they played outstanding. It was right before the trade deadline. And everyone's like, whoa, maybe they could be a playoff contender. And so, like, that's just the thing. The best teams are the teams when adversity hits. You don't pull apart. You don't quit on your team. You don't do that. You stick together and you pull together. And that's why that locker room matters. That's why the head coach at the podium matters. And the Rams are just one of those teams. And so what's the strength of the Vikings? To me, if I'm like a quarterback, man, Brian Flores and that defense is difficult to recognize what they're doing. You have Matthew Stafford, one of the most experienced quarterbacks. It's such with Sean McVay, it's such a great matchup.
Good stuff. Matt Hasselbeck, who was a free agent on the market, and we feel like we got a steal on him. Now, why are you in L.A. this week? We don't get you in L.A. much.
No, yeah, like what'd you say, every 5 weeks probably. My son's a freshman quarterback at UCLA, and they start school today. So I said, hey, I'll come out with you. We had some luggage. We brought some extra bags this time, if I'm being real. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you're going to be out here more often.
We'll see. Yeah, hope so. I mean, I don't know if he wants me around. You know what I mean?
I got you.
He's like, Dad, I'm at Rocco's. Like, what are you talking about? Leave me alone.
I know.
Inside joke.
I know.
Okay.
You got to be smart, though. That's not an easy school. You can't be party son.
No,
I could see you in college leading.
I had hair back then. It was dangerous. No, he does well in school. He had a great first semester.
Way to go. And his name is?
Henry.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love having you on the show, bud.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.